think it was, I can't remember what goalie it was in the league. We had him on the next night after he'd led in 7 goals. And he came on the set and blew, the dog barked at him, you know, that dog that he's got. And everybody was clapping. And he sat down, and Don looked at him and he said, "You suck." It was really an interesting moment. He said, "What do you mean, Don? You let in 7 goals. Every low shot last night, you let in. If you were on my team, I'd fire you."
Gee, that sounds familiar, Kevin.
Yeah, it does. And I'm thinking that somehow I got assimilated into that.
I think maybe you did. Okay, so then, but after the television production company, you got started on Softkey.
Right.
So remind people what Softkey turned into.
Softkey Software Products was started in the basement of 411 Shaw Street. It was effectively the early days of the learning company. We were a consumer software company. I had a thesis that software would eventually, you know, lower itself. In the beginning, we were selling the stuff for $300 a copy. But my thesis was the price of computers would come down and that this would become a consumer product. And I'd worked in consumer products before. I'd sold Miss Mew cat food. And I thought that maybe I could apply those talents to the software business, and it ended up working. We went from 0 in sales to nearly $1 billion when we sold the company. And it was the same idea from the first day. My first partner was John Freeman. In fact, he still has his 50 shares. And that company grew from basically a classic basement story. But there was so much, you know, I think about the journey, all the people and the partners and the companies we worked with and the individual that came and went. There were hundreds and hundreds, and finally we had almost 4,000 employees. I knew them all, and I hired and fired all of them, individually.
Well, speaking of firing, this is, I guess, as I read the book, I was thinking there seemed to be a bit of a contradiction in your persona and who you are sort of behind the scenes. Because, you know, just as you are on the show, when you talk about building the company, you know, you were very ruthless in a sense. I mean, you were focused, you knew what you needed to do, you made tough decisions. You know, when you went to Walmart and they wanted a really low price, you were like, yes, I can do that. And you made everybody do that. And you said you walked through the office looking at people saying, like, who do we really need here? Like, people are costs and we got to whack some people. So, like, there's this very, you know, hard-ass side of you. But then, on the other hand, all the way through the book, so many times you are so grateful to people, you know, like from the woman who helped you with dyslexia to, of course, your mom and your stepdad and your partners, you know, lavishing praise on your partners, how great they are. And, you know, in some ways you start to come across as actually a pretty good guy.
It must be true.
Well, no. This is what I wondered. Like, who is the real Kevin, the sweetheart or the heartless bastard?
I think you have to be both. Because let me say why that's not inconsistent, and that these can be, you know, that can happen together. Think about a business. If you're an employee there and you're working hard and you're creating wealth for the shareholders, and it's working, the company's growing. What you concern yourself with is stability of your job, stability of your paycheck, and making sure that you can provide for your family. If somebody's in a business and it's not working, just like if you have a disease in your body, you've got to get surgery and have it removed so that the rest of the body doesn't die. It's that simple. That's the way I look at it. So when I'm taking somebody out of the mix and I'm removing them from my company, it's because I'm doing it for the rest of the employees that are staying. And I really believe that, because you've got to fight when times are tough to maintain stability and profitability and economic viability of a business, because many people that remain and work there are relying on you. They're trusting you as the company's leader to make sure they're safe. Now, if you have to take out 5% or 10% of the employees, or even 15% in an economic downturn, it's still the right thing to do, because there's 85% that are supporting their families on the paycheck. So I have no remorse. I have no trouble doing it. It's keeping the overall entity viable.
You're doing it for the sake of the others.
Exactly, and that's a good thing to do. And I think I'm looking at that from the employee perspective, but I'm also worried about my shareholders, because without capital, there is no business. Access to capital is how you grow companies. The only reason people put money in your hands is because they trust you to have it multiply. I find it very strange when people say to me, what about society? What about taking care of the baby whales? What about saving, you know, the birch trees? I say, listen, the first thing you have to do with a business is understand its DNA is to profit. Then you take your portion of the profits that you own because you're a shareholder, and you save baby whales, and you save birch trees, or you do whatever you want with it because it's your money. But the business doesn't do that. The business makes money for its shareholders. And by the way, as you listen to this, would you invest in a company that I was running when you hear that? How many would invest with me? Thank you.
Let me ask you another question. When you did your deal with Mattel, you obviously made a lot of money. Now, some people might have said, hey, I've done really great here, and I'm just going to chill out and retire and take it easy. But you are absolutely driven. I mean, I was telling them earlier, 4 shows, you're running the mutual fund, plus you do like a hit with Heather Hiscox every morning on the news network, on the morning show. It's like you are driven to go, achieve whatever. What is that?
I just want you to know that hit in the morning, I have no pants on.
He tells me that every time I mention it.
True, because I do it by Skype. I roll out of bed at 6:48, and I go right back to bed when it's over.
Yeah, but why? Why are you so compelled to just, like, sometimes you show up at Lang & O'Leary sometimes and you'll go, oh, I'm really, really tired, really crispy. Well, why don't you just take a break?
I tried it. I retired for 3 years. I was forced retirement. I was paid by Mattel $5 million not to work for 36 months. And I thought that was going to be the best time of my life. It was the worst. I went to every beach on earth, went to every resort, went anywhere I wanted to go, and I was bored out of my mind. I like being in business. I like working with young people. I like doing television and running the mutual funds and starting new companies. I like it. I think it keeps you alive. I think it keeps you stimulated and keeps you young. And I enjoy myself. I don't have to do anything. That's my whole point. I want many Canadians to find themselves in my situation. That's why I wrote this book. I'm trying to provide a roadmap for anybody that wants to be a great employee or employer or just enjoy their lives, that the pursuit of freedom is a fantastic thing. I mean, the fact that I don't have to do anything makes me want to do everything. That's the way I look at it.
It's interesting because your whole investing philosophy came from your mom.
Yes, she was right. The cold hard truth about investing is women are smarter than men. I'm not kidding. I think about what she said to me when I was 5 years old. I didn't even know what she was talking about. She said, Kevin, never spend the principal, just the interest. I know what she was talking about. She said, I only invest in stocks and bonds that pay interest and dividends. I never, ever, ever, ever buy anything that doesn't send me a check every quarter because I have no assurances that it's going to go up in value, but I know I'm getting my dividend check. So if you think about the markets in the last decade, even 12 years now, they have not gone up at all. Zero capital gain in the Dow and the TSX and the S&P, zero in 12 years. If you had been my mother during that period, which I have been, you at least have made 6 to 8% in dividend and interest during that whole period of time. So I tell my guys, and we founded O'Leary Funds on that principle. I couldn't find a money manager in this whole country when I tell them that story about my mother, because she'd always say to me, every week, never spend the principal, just the interest. I'd tell them that story, and they'd say, oh, how cute. Don't worry, we'll try and manage that way. But they wouldn't do it. They'd buy me stocks that didn't pay dividends. It'd drive me crazy. So I said, I'll set the company up myself. I have enough money to do that. I'll hire people. I'll tell them the story. And if they ever buy a stock that doesn't pay a dividend, I'll fire them. Because they work for me. Now I have 50 people working on this. And we thought we'd raise maybe $50, $60 million. We've raised $1.9 billion. I'm not proud of that. I'm proud of my mother's philosophy, which it turns out thousands of Canadians also want to do. Mm-hmm. I think it's great.
Now, I know your stepfather, George, you still have a really strong, you just saw him recently, didn't you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're really, really close with him, always have been. He's been a mentor. Your mom is gone now, yes, unfortunately. What do you think she would have thought about this book? The fact that her son is a published author.
Well, George was a phenomenal resource in doing this because either I thought the past was too painful, I didn't want to dwell in it. He forced me to get the facts of my early childhood right because he was there. And I went through those chapters with him. It was really hard. And I'm sure he read every word, and he'd always, this thing I thought it was going to take me 3 months to write. It took me a year and a half to get this done. and I worked with lots of people on it. It's hard to write a book because you have to get it right. It's public record. What you put in there has to be correct. And also, I think about making sure, and he would constantly read the chapters. I remember finishing a chapter at 11 o'clock, reading it and saying, that's great. Waking up in the morning after Heather's hit in the morning on CBC, and I'd read it again and say, this is crap. What happened overnight? And you constantly rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. Look, I hope people enjoy it because I worked so damn hard on it. I look at it this way. If a man could give birth, it would be to a book. That hard.
I don't know about that. All right, well, we're going to have questions from the audience as well. And I think if they've got a microphone here, if people want to step up while we're waiting.
Repeat the question if they yell it out.
Yeah, I guess we could do that. But we've got people who are ready to go here, Kevin.
All right, who's got a question? Yes, Amanda Lang has 300 pairs of shoes.
Size 6.
Shoot, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Carrie Ann Thomas. I'm a recent entrepreneur of a media company, and I've been attending a few of the Mars seminars. And my interest with you today, because your name has come up at a lot of the investment seminars I've gone to, how do you reach out to investors presenting your business plan in a way that they would want to take you seriously?
That's a very good question. Let me give you some really interesting information because I've become a student of all of the deals that were successful in 6 years on Dragon's Den and 3 years on Shark Tank. And let me give you the 3 attributes that every single one that got financed had. Not some, 100%. So, here it is. 100% of the time, when a deal got financed, the entrepreneur or the entrepreneurs, because sometimes there were 2 or 3 people there, were able to articulate the idea in 90 seconds or less. It was so pure and crystal clear that they could explain it to me as an investor in 90 seconds, that it would go off like a light bulb in my head. I get it, and I understand how I can make money off that. That was in 100% of the cases. If you go back and look at the tape of all the successful pitches, they always get it out in 90 seconds, or less. Sometimes it's 30 seconds. Secondly, they're able to articulate, and it takes them about 5 minutes, why they're the right person to execute the business plan, why they know how to make this company grow and how to build it and how to make it work. That's number 2. And when those 2 come together, something magical happens. I've been in the room many times and watched it. It's like they start to sizzle like an isotope, and you want to write them a check. They become a leader in your eyes, somebody that has the potential to be successful. And that's what happens when you're able to communicate effectively. So I say to everybody that wants to pitch an idea, and I do this, I practice too. I get in front of the mirror today when I'm pitching a new idea to my investors, and I want to make sure that I can explain it to them in 90 seconds or less.
Sizzling.
And I try and sizzle like an isotope every day.
Okay, all right, and
Thank you.
the heels. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name's Hillary. I just wondering.
Yeah, you said there were 3 things that they all had in common.
Well, the third thing was that the 2 turned them into leaders, the idea that they became something more than the sum of the parts. You feel it happen in a room. It's a magical experience. It's an aura. It's the patina of success. It's the karma. It's the hidden secret sauce. That's the third thing. Yes?
You can take this personally or not, but what would you do with second generation money? I think of your own son, but Pete, you thrive in making the money. You've had the enjoyment. And then would you, give a lot of seed money to your kid? Would you not? What's the
So
best
if you
philosophy?
inherit money, what do? I really think that it's so important if you're lucky enough to have the right genes to end up being born rich, which is, believe me, a wonderful outcome. I have nothing against that. That you understand that you didn't make that money. And that some of the skill sets that are required to maintain it, you may not have. Because when you make your own money, you're scared out of your mind to lose it. That's what happens. I fear losing my money. I sweat bullets every day. I sweat every investment decision I make, trying to protect my principal. And what I find often is missing in the DNA of people that are just given money is they don't get that. And very often, if you go back and you look at great family fortunes, and here's some bad news, it only takes 3 generations to wipe it out.
Shirt sleeve to shirt sleeves in 3 generations, they say, right?
It's awful.